An armed bandit storms into the Thornton news agency. Brandishing a machete, he raises the weapon at shop owner Wayne Hackett, repeatedly yelling at him to hand over cash. Also captured on the newsagent's security cameras, the terrifying moment a customer walks in on the ordeal. Today, only a day later, Mr Hackett returned to work.
I was a bit concerned for my life, for sure. I have to be here. You can't really afford in a small business to employ too many people, so if I shut the doors, the papers don't get sold.
He's attempting to put the attack to one side as best he can.
Had a few drinks last night and that sort of got me to sleep, but still a bit jittery over it, yeah. Take a bit of getting over. I'm always looking over my shoulder.
Today, a new lead in police investigations. A maroon-coloured sedan seen in the area at the time could have been used as the offender's getaway vehicle.
One of the distinguishing factors is the man left the store and he's seen to run away and he's running with a limp. And we're calling on the public, if they do know who the offender is, to please call us at Maitland Police or Crime Stoppers.
Christy Reading, NBN News. He's regarded as one of the more interesting characters in modern politics, and today Clive Palmer didn't disappoint. Flanked by the two by-election candidates backed by his party, the Palmer United leader seemed to stumble at the first hurdle. Susan Wrightson is actually Sue Ellen. The federal MP was clearer about his state intentions.
In New South Wales, we'll be seeking to control the balance of power in the upper house at the next election.
Mr Palmer weighed in on a number of local issues, including that controversial rail line.
When you're talking about public service, it is that, it's public service. So the next argument is that we should cut our hospitals, we should lease our ports. I would question the sense in leasing the port for such a long time, for such a low return to the community.
As for his predictions come Saturday,
we think that the Hunter will create national news come Saturday when you see our vote here.
Only time will tell. Christy Reading, NBN News.
Perhaps not the sight you'd expect at a cafe which gained national notoriety after its owner's comments about young customers.
So far it's been child friendly. We're still waiting on our coffee and our cake, but yeah, it's been fine.
This is the Facebook post that sparked it all. Jodie Morris wrote that if customers were looking for an area for children to run rampant and annoy other customers, this was not the place. The backlash was immediate, but Ms Morris has no regrets.
Oh, the amount of cafe owners, cafe workers that have contacted me Australia-wide and have gone, good on you. We really wanted to say it, but nobody's said it. And I think you can tell by the reaction nationally and now globally that, if you do speak up and say, I'm not going to put up with this behaviour, and people are like, well, good on you.
What's small business is booming.
I just can't believe it. We've been so busy here. We doubled and tripled our orders today and we still had to stop serving. We ran out of everything.
The Restaurant and Catering Industry Association has backed her actions, saying owners are unlikely to take a stance which would negatively affect their business and that they have to take the pleasure of other patrons and regulars into account.
This is only a small cafe and you wouldn't really want children racing around the cafe.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
They work day and night, 24/7, as I say, on the bitumen, out there protecting the community. And to come here today in such a good environment, to actually, to look at the pride and the tradition and be able to give these police the awards is a very proud moment for a senior police commander.
It's not just a program for young Picassos. The schools share their journey with the community through blogs that are live. They also create some wonderful multimedia. As you can see, this little school here has created the most amazing little stop motion video.
At just 6 weeks old, little Lawan is part of a project that could affect his health for many years to come. He's at the John Hunter Children's Hospital for his first checkup in the Breathing for Life trial. As he falls asleep, each breath is closely monitored.
A 6-week follow-up to look at their lung function and lung growth, and then follow-ups again at 6 and 12 months.
Lawan's mum has asthma, which puts him at a higher risk of developing the disease. 6-month-old Elliot is the youngest of Laura Granger's 3 children. She's hoping to give her kids a healthier childhood than she experienced.
If I can know if they've got something prior, you can always look after them before anything happens, and you don't have those big scary moments where you're rushing your kids to hospital, freaking out, not knowing what's wrong with them.
Researchers have already shown that adjusting treatment for asthmatic mothers based on lung inflammation improves outcomes for both them and their babies.
And ultimately whether we can prevent respiratory diseases such as bronchiolitis and asthma from occurring in the future.
As a mother with asthma myself, I'm constantly wondering, are my children going to develop asthma as well? And these mothers are the same. They want to know what's going to happen to their baby.
The multi-million-dollar project has just received 5 years funding from the federal government, but researchers hope it'll run much longer.
At the moment we are focusing on infancy, but we hope to follow them up into childhood and adolescence and hopefully into adulthood.
As the Jets players prepare to travel to Wellington, Newcastle management is again caught up in speculation about the finances of club owner Nathan Tinkler.
Wages this month were all paid, staff, players, and that's been all taken care of. So I don't know where those reports came from, but they've all been paid this month.
Robbie Middleby says Tinkler and Newcastle officials are still having regular discussions with the FFA about the ownership of the Jets. While the CEO is keen to acknowledge the current owner's contribution, he says the club has already been planning for life without him.
Regardless who the owner is, and if it's the FFA coming eventually getting involved with the club, we're positive about the future. We just need the football community of Newcastle to get behind the club and get behind the players and support the team this season.
Middleby today confirmed he did speak with British billionaire Marwan Kukash about buying the club. While reportedly interested in the Knights, the owner of the Salford Devils took to Twitter to confirm the Jets aren't on his radar for now.
There was some discussion, but he's come out publicly and said that he doesn't want to get involved with the club, and that's fine. There is some interested parties out there, and I'm sure they'll be pursued in the future.
Flashes of brilliance which turned a game on its head. After losing first innings points to Belmont, last weekend City produced the goods when it counted.
I'd never been involved in a 2-day game where you lost first innings and managed to turn it around. They don't come around often.
University is next, and City isn't taking the students lightly.
They've got a few good players in, so they're going to be one of the tougher sides to beat in Newcastle. But again, for our young blokes, it's a good test.
After helping Durham win the English County Championship, Mitch Claydon has now signed a 3-year deal with Kent. But since returning to the local scene, his bowling has been kept to a minimum.
I bowled over 700 overs in the 6 months in county cricket. So, I've come back and I've had a good break now for 3 or 4 weeks, and I might roll the arm over this week against Uni.
One team that's rolling the opposition is Wallsend. After only 2 games, the Tigers are where they want to be, and that's looking down from the top.
Great start. We had a emphatic win over Waratah, and Hamwick's on the weekend, always a tough side. To get a win against a side like that this early on in the year was really good.
Wallsend take on Charlestown this Saturday. Hamwicks will be looking to bounce back against Stockton. The Premiers travel to Toronto. Waratah squares off against Cardiff, while Belmont plays the Rosellas. Michael Kane, NBN News.
"13 visits to the Hunter since August, and this is what it's all been leading up to. John Robertson back for one last attempt to take back the seats of Newcastle and Charlestown.
A plan that protects existing jobs, a plan that is about growing jobs, diversifying the economy, making sure that this region and this area becomes the best it can be.
The people of Charlestown are thinking voters, and I'm certainly asking them to think very seriously about voting for me.
But in the final leg, it's emerged Mr Krakenthorpe may have a conflict of interest in Labor's proposed transport plan for Newcastle. His in-laws own a property that could have to be bought by the government to make way for a bypass.
I've always been extremely clear and transparent about any potential conflict of interest over the last 6 years, and I will continue to be so if elected.
Independents say it's just another reason to shift away from the major political parties.
Even in the last 24 hours, there's been yet again an example of their disrespect for the people of Newcastle.
The Greens candidates didn't miss their final opportunity either, signing an ethical charter today.
And if we're elected, that we'll act ethically and we'll engage in clean politics.
It's time that we had politicians who reflect the community, who represent the community's values and who stand up for ethics and integrity.
Polling opens tomorrow at 8 a.m. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Jodie McKay is somebody who deserves to be in the New South Wales Parliament for a whole number of reasons. We are 5 months out from the next general election, and that's why I intervened and asked the National Executive to put her into the seat.
It's a decision that's rocked the mining community. Since Anglo American's Drayton South project was rejected by the Planning Assessment Commission on Tuesday, the state's planning process has been under fire.
It's taken 3, almost 4 years now to get to this point, and it does show that there is something incredibly wrong in the planning system in New South Wales, where decisions just take so long.
None more critical than the New South Wales Minerals Council. It says the government knows the system is broken and that urgent reform of the system is needed to protect jobs and restore confidence in the hunter. Meanwhile, Anglo American has called on the Premier to step in and save the 500 jobs at risk by overruling the decision. But a spokesperson for the State Planning Department says there are detailed and complex issues to consider when assessing mining applications, and that since 2011, approvals and modifications to mines have supported around 17,000 new and ongoing jobs. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
It was a proud day for an Upper Hunter school.
We're reenacting the 1964 march from Scone Public to Scone High School when we separated from Scone Public to become Scone High School.
Students made the trek across town, including some who were doing it for a second time.
We have about 10 people who've come back today to reenact their march.
One of those, former pupil Peter Thompson.
I was wearing the jacket, but it didn't pull around the shoulders as much back then, and in fact, back today's days, I could do it up.
Meanwhile, the town's annual 3-day beef bonanza also got underway today. The event allows beef enthusiasts and established producers to showcase their cattle and compare notes with others in the industry.
It's been a weekend that's developed over the last 9 years, and we're now seeing a competition that we run sort of over 300 head of slaughter cattle.
The school's Steer Challenge took centre stage with students from across the state competing.
Is someone that can present their animal to the best of their ability and basically have that animal balanced and show off all the good traits of their animal.
Cooner Barrabrand's Hayley Andrews taking out the Young Handlers title.
Probably just keep your eye on the judge, keep your steer's head up, and that's about it.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
They'll be out this Sunday, all 6 of them, with competent coaches on board to let the participants get out there and learn what sailing's all about.
Meet the real Housewives of Scone, a group of friends with one mission: to raise funds for breast cancer research.
It's a disease now that really there's only one degree of separation between you and someone that you know that has had it or, has it.
The idea was to create a stir in an attempt to attract support.
I thought this year I wanted to do something a bit different and incorporate something fun with some of the other girls in town, so we decided to do a calendar.
Really good fun, and fun to be asked, and fun to do it with all your fellow girlfriends.
Tonight's launch coincides with a pink candlelight dinner in the hope of raising even more proceeds to put a stop to a disease which affects so many.
I kind of thought to myself, these girls who get breast cancer, they lose their breasts. It's for a good cause.
And it seems these daring ladies already have their next project sorted.
We're thinking maybe next year we might get the husbands to pose in the same poses as us and see how that might sell.
It all seemed like a terrific thing to do.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
The coach has been encouraged by Newcastle's start to the season, but Phil Stubbins isn't content to simply make up the numbers. When he was appointed, Stubbins talked about strengthening the culture at the club. This week, that process has involved getting his players to believe they can win in Wellington.
For us, we need to actually go there with a mindset of scoring goals and winning games. That's what we're trying to put across to the boys. We're looking forward to getting over there. It's always a nice place to visit, Wellington. It's always nicer when you've got 3 points.
Having beaten the Phoenix in pre-season, the Jets say they have nothing to fear. The coach today described Newcastle's opening 4 games as the toughest start to a season in A-League history, but he's not using it as an excuse.
I think we've got a real balance about our squad that once everyone becomes available to be up for selection, you'll see that the Newcastle Jets are capable of beating any team in this competition.
Newcastle's attack has so far been led by Joel Griffiths and Edson Montano, but Stubbins revealed he's planning to rotate his front third and could include the likes of Zenon Caravella and Andrew Houle in the starting 11. Ben Kennedy has a blockage in his ear and won't fly to New Zealand. Ben Kantarovski will be saved for the clash with Perth.
He's ready, but he won't travel. We'll sort of use this coming few days to service the load into him in terms of the training, and then moving forward into next week, he'll present ready to go.
They definitely were the better team that game, but this time around we know that we want to play the way we normally can, and if we do, then hopefully we'll get the points we need. Not only the win, but the fact that we got 5 goals, and so it's from different players. So, people are stepping up, they're putting goals in the back of the net, and it just is a win to build off of, and hopefully we can continue that performance for this weekend's game.
After almost 3 months without any representation in state parliament, the people of Newcastle and Charlestown have today voted to elect new state members. NBN's Vivian von Drainen joins us live from Katara High School, where the polls have just closed.
Thanks, Paul. It's been an incredibly busy day in Newcastle and Charlestown, and as you can see, voting is just about to start behind me. Now, some voters seemed a little disengaged with the political process today after the ICAC fallout, but overall, most voters were fairly happy to cast their vote, even though we did have a few voters tear their ballot papers up in front of us. Let's take a look at how election day went.
Tim Krakenthorpe and a little more Tim Krakenthorpe. Labor's little helpers up since 4 a.m, making sure their candidate for Newcastle couldn't be missed. But when it came time for Mr Krakenthorpe to vote at Hamilton South this morning, it was more of a family affair.
We need to win the trust back of the people of Newcastle. It hasn't been a Labor seat for a term. It was marginal before that.
Independent Karen Howard campaigned to the last minute before blending in to cast her vote.
I absolutely do think that this is the right time for independence. A strong cohort of independents in this state is going to keep both major parties honest.
And it's no wonder she's feeling confident. In Charlestown, a kiss for good luck from one of Jodie Harrison's supporters. But it seems the Labor candidate won't need it. Without any high-profile competitors, even Ms Harrison thinks the seat is all but won.
Between now and March, I'll be working very hard to represent the people of Charlestown in the Parliament.
With the by-election sparked by the resignation of Hunter MPs Tim Owen and Andrew Cornwall after the ICAC found their election campaigns were corruptly funded, honesty and transparency were key themes for the Greens in both seats.
We've tried to make it clear to the people of Newcastle that we like to do politics differently. We like to have integrity when we do politics.
State opposition leader John Robertson, who's still in town, also quick to remind voters why they're here.
Many people are frustrated they're being forced to come back to vote today. My message to everyone has been this all lies at the feet of the Liberal government.
How close the vote is, we could see a result in a matter of hours, but the new members shouldn't get too comfortable as it's just 5 months until the state election. And of course, before then, Newcastle voters also have to elect a new Lord Mayor. So, Paul, a busy time ahead.
It sure is. Thanks, Vivian. Vivian von Drainen there.
Ukuleles at every turn, creating a harmony like no other. And there's plenty to like about this four-stringed instrument.
There's a big revolution happening in the world with the ukulele. It's small, it's light, it's portable, it's cheap, it's fun.
The biannual event today attracted people from all over the country, from all walks of life.
From people that you might consider to be punk rockers of ukulele, to people that are more classical 1920s, to people that are a little bit more folky, a little bit more bluegrass. So you can do anything on the uke.
And it seems the ukulele is getting more popular with young musicians eager to strum their stuff.
It's just got a good tone on it and it's just fun and entertaining to play.
One man that gets to travel the world showcasing his talent is James Hill. Adaptable to different types of music genres, today jazz was on the agenda.
People really underestimate what the ukulele can do in jazz, but the ukulele's got 4 strings, you've got 4 fingers, jazz chords have 4 notes. It's a beautiful thing. Not only the musical qualities of the ukulele, but the ability to bring together community around music and to put music back in the hands of people.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
The Jets had never beaten the Roar at home, and early on, that run looked set to continue. Claire Quello started in goal for the Jets after Hannah Southwell re-injured her hip during the warm-up and was under fire by the Brisbane attack. Tensions threatened to boil over approaching half-time with the score still locked at 0-0. But that would soon change. A pinpoint ball from Emily Van Egmond found Tori Huster, who skipped around the keeper to open the scoring. Just 1 minute later, the Jets were on again. Amber Nielsen setting up Van Egmond for a chance of her own, chipping over the keeper, and while the Roar claimed the ball didn't cross the line, the goal was given and the Jets were in front 2-0. The second half had only just started when Newcastle hit the scoreboard again, but this time it was a mistimed clearance from the Roar that brought the goal. Brisbane continued to do themselves no favours. When Nielsen was brought down by Larissa Crummer, the referee pointed straight to the spot and Van Egmond made no mistakes, scoring a second. A late effort from Tamika Butt saw Brisbane get on the board, but it did little to change the result. Samuel Jordan, NBN News. They're the masters of their domain, trusted to keep the public safe. But on January 16th, these lifeguards will have their skills tested like never before, paddling their rescue boards 130 kilometres from Blacksmiths to Bondi.
It is a long way. It's gonna hurt, but it'll be good.
The idea was only formed a few weeks ago, but immediately drew support amongst the lifeguards. 8 of them are taking on the challenge with mixed emotions on what lays ahead.
It was a bit of excitement to think that we're actually going to be able to do it. But yeah, it was definitely a scary thought. 130 k's is not just like you get out of bed and go do that.
The motivation for the trip is raising money for research into motor neuron disease, with a target set at $20,000.
It's a disease that doesn't have a cure, and we really want to raise as much money as we can and awareness for this disease.
The lifeguards are prepared for both the physical and mental pain that the paddle will bring, but believe if they band together, they will reach the finish line.
We work together, we all live together, we've all raced in surf life saving like yourself, so it's all very exciting to be doing that with your friends that you've been mates with for a long time.
For information on how you can donate, visit the NBN News website. Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
After almost 3 months without any representation in state parliament, the people of Newcastle and Charlestown have today voted to elect new state members. NBN's Vivian von Drainen joins us live from Katara High School, where the polls have just closed.
Thanks, Paul. It's been an incredibly busy day in Newcastle and Charlestown, and as you can see, voting is just about to start behind me. Now, some voters seemed a little disengaged with the political process today after the ICAC fallout, but overall, most voters were fairly happy to cast their vote, even though we did have a few voters tear their ballot papers up in front of us. Let's take a look at how election day went.
Tim Krakenthorpe and a little more Tim Krakenthorpe. Labor's little helpers up since 4 a.m, making sure their candidate for Newcastle couldn't be missed. But when it came time for Mr Krakenthorpe to vote at Hamilton South this morning, it was more of a family affair.
We need to win the trust back of the people of Newcastle. It hasn't been a Labor seat for a term. It was marginal before that.
Independent Karen Howard campaigned to the last minute before blending in to cast her vote.
I absolutely do think that this is the right time for independence. A strong cohort of independents in this state is going to keep both major parties honest.
And it's no wonder she's feeling confident.
I voted for you, so good luck.
In Charlestown, a kiss for good luck from one of Jodie Harrison's supporters.
Good luck, mate. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay.
But it seems the Labor candidate won't need it. Without any high-profile competitors, even Ms Harrison thinks the seat is all but won.
Between now and March, I'll be working very hard to represent the people of Charlestown in the Parliament.
With the by-election sparked by the resignation of Hunter MPs Tim Owen and Andrew Cornwall after the ICAC found their election campaigns were corruptly funded, honesty and transparency were key themes for the Greens in both seats.
We've tried to make it clear to the people of Newcastle that we like to do politics differently. We like to have integrity when we do politics.
State Opposition Leader John Robertson, who's still in town, also quick to remind voters why they're here.
Many people are frustrated they're being forced to come back to vote today. My message to everyone has been this all lies at the feet of the Liberal government.
Now, depending on how close the vote is, we could see a result in a matter of hours, but the new members shouldn't get too comfortable as it's just 5 months until the state election. And of course, before then, Newcastle voters also have to elect a new Lord Mayor. So, Paul, a busy time ahead.
It sure is. Thanks, Vivian. Vivian von Drainen there.
I'm very humbled and very proud to be elected today to represent the people of Newcastle for the next 5 months.
I intend to keep the Baird government honest.
Victoria's scenes in the seat where Labor threw everything it had.
The people of the Hunter have put their faith back in Labor and we will never let them down again.
Jodie Harrison in Charlestown and Tim Crackenthorpe in Newcastle, twin victories and a message for the Liberals.
My message to Mike Baird is this: you can run, but you can't hide.
Today at home, Mr Crackenthorpe was preparing for the highs and lows of political life with a little family time, the win closer than he would have liked.
Yeah, it was fairly close, and I'll get out there and pound the streets and talk to people and hopefully make sure it's not quite as close next time.
And that was thanks to Karen Howard. About 4,000 votes is all that separated them. But will she run again as an independent or perhaps with the Liberals in March?
I'm an independent. I wear that really proudly on my sleeve.
For Jodie Harrison, though, victory was never in doubt. Just under 50% of the vote was hers. A little downtime today, but over the next 5 months at least, she'll be the busiest woman in Charlestown, juggling the role of state member and mayor of Lake Macquarie.
It's been done in the past, it's been done by 2 men in the past, and I think I've got exactly the same abilities.
What is interesting is that more than 2,000 people lodged an informal vote in Newcastle alone. That's more votes than the Palmer United-supported independent could get. History for the Greens too, Michael Osborne recording the highest number of votes for the party in Newcastle ever.
I think the people of Newcastle have really seen the Greens as a viable alternative to the old parties, and they've recognised that, you know, we stand up for clean politics.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Newcastle made a bright start with Andrew Houle providing a great cross for Joel Griffiths. The visitors have conceded 2 late goals this season. Today it was 2 former Jets in Brocky and Burns who came back to haunt Newcastle early. Jacob Pepper bit off more than he could chew before Houle justified his selection with an impressive run. The Phoenix responded through Burns, who thought he had a claim for a penalty against good mate Birigidi. The Jets had a decent shout as well, but Caravella's claim was dismissed. Edson Montano thought he was fouled, but the Jets had no time to complain as Burns punished his former team. The Newcastle defence was found wanting again after the break as Burns set up McGlinchey. Geronimo was introduced into the Jets' attack only to be denied by another former Jet, Andrew Durante. Burns should have had a hat-trick, denied by a desperate Sam Galloway, before Griffiths restored some pride for Newcastle with a simple header. Adding insult to injury, Durante popped up to make it 4-1 in stoppage time.
I probably went a bit too hard early on and I paid for it in the end. I was really suffering those last few laps. But yeah, I just tried to sit there and make it look like I wasn't hurting too much.
These are the Labor signs that have created a post-election stir. They direct voters not to choose preferences, and the only way you'd know they belong to the ALP is in the fine print. Newcastle Independent Jacqueline Haynes is lodging a formal complaint with the Australian Electoral Commission.
It was strategy, it was smart strategy, but it was unethical. And I think that's what everyone's sick of in politics. We don't want it anymore. This was a strategy to win at any cost.
Ms Haynes says she saw many voters confused by the signs and flyers with a similar message. She plans to run again in March.
We had the by-election because of rogue Liberals and a lack of ethics that happened amongst a realm of people. And this just highlighted that the Labor Party didn't learn anything.
Lake Macquarie Independent MP Greg Piper says similar tactics were used against him in 2007.
I actually subsequently wrote to the Electoral Commissioner in 2010, raised it with him. Electoral Commissioner indicated that he thought that there was something about it as well.
A spokesperson for the Labor Party says all of the election material was correctly authorised and registered, and that all it was trying to do was reduce the informal vote.
This is a classic by the Labor Party to try and kill or reduce the number of people who give a preference vote, and it works.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Newcastle foreshore takes on a very different look on Thursday nights. A large group of people, many with done-up cars, gather at Nobby's Beach car park.
Have a chat and, look at the cars.
The kids love it, no one's doing any harm.
But police say the gathering has a reputation with issues such as antisocial behaviour and dangerous driving. The car enthusiasts claim police are targeting them because of a few doing the wrong thing.
We're not doing it wrong. We're sitting here, we're a group of mates, car enthusiasts, having a chat. They're even getting to the point of coming and taking photos of our number plates, undercover coppers.
Not all of us are out to run amok and do burnouts and carry on silly.
We'll conduct traffic enforcement in a whole range of areas. If we detect serious safety breaches on vehicles, defects are issued. If we detect people committing serious offences, we'll take appropriate action.
The drivers believe having their own designated area and possibly a drag strip similar to the one at Eastern Creek could solve many of the issues.
They put a drag strip in Sydney. Why couldn't they put one in Newcastle somewhere and it will save all the Kura gang hassles and all the everything like that?
A venue that created an alternative to committing serious traffic offences on the road was created. Well, there's an opportunity. But the bottom line is serious traffic offences shouldn't be being committed on the roadway.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
Got caught with our pants down a little bit there. Obviously conceding so early was a bit of a setback for us. Thereafter we opened up and tried to play a little bit of an expansive game there, and Wellington, to their credit, found us out just before half-time with the second goal, which sort of, was a hard one for us to take.
The last time Chris Lees had a runner in the Melbourne Cup was back in 2003. At the time, his father Max had recently passed away, and Chris was tasked with taking County Tyrone to the big race at Flemington, where he finished 15th. 11 years later, Lees has a genuine contender in Lucia Valentina.
Second or third favourite, I think that's about right on recent form. You've got to respect all the imports. They've proven over the trip and they've won all the majors so far, so it'll be a great contest.
Those imports include Caulfield Cup winner Admire Rakti.
Got trapped a little wide and then got in with a bit of cover, but and the winner flushed us out on the corner. So we didn't have the best of runs, but I think she'll be better suited when we get to Flemington.
Kieran McAvoy retains the ride on the 4-year-old who has never run this distance.
Her pedigree would suggest she could be questionable at it, but from what we've seen in the last couple of runs, I'm confident she'll run the trip out.
Lucia Valentina will enjoy a light build-up to the race over the next few days, but how will her trainer cope with all the extra attention?
Yeah, I'll handle it. It'll be fine.
We're still doing a good job, but we're only going to get better. So it's exciting, you know, with the group that we've got.
Tamworth's always been a benchmark, I suppose, for the clubs to beat. I mean, they're a strong a team. They've always done really well in this comp, and so it was a big ask for us to come up here and get that win up. So, no, we're pretty happy.
Miles and 500 more. That's pretty much what Max and Karsten plan to do in their next adventure.
I just walked 1,200 k's in these shoes, I reckon.
The couple who shot to fame on The Block plan to walk from the Glass House in Melbourne up the east coast all the way to their hometown of Newcastle.
I think it's roughly between 25 kilometres is the smallest day and 58 is the longest day.
While they were getting kitted up with all the good walking gear today, the newlyweds don't have long to prepare for the November 7 start date. Karsten will be using that time to swap his beloved thongs for more sensible footwear.
I never wear shoes, so this is kind of cool.
We did a 900-kilometre walk across Spain. Karsten actually did that in his thongs, so it is possible, but there were a lot of injuries.
Anybody would think these blockheads would need a break after their gruelling renovation feat.
We've probably had about 4 weeks to organise the entire thing. Normally it'd probably take, 4 months?
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those ridiculous things, very similar to The Block. Here, build a room in a week. No, plan an event in 4 weeks.
An event that aims to help grant 18 Christmas wishes for seriously ill kids through the Starlight Foundation.
Fingers crossed we can hit our goal of 120,000.
Fingers crossed we can make it.
Yes.
Details on how to donate can be found on our website. Kate Haberfield, NBN News. A mangled wreckage, trees stripped, a wing ripped off by the force of the impact. What's left of the aircraft sits precariously on top of a hill. How anyone survived is remarkable. The Cessna took off from the Victorian city of Ballarat yesterday on a flight the pilot has done many times. The 62-year-old stopped at Mudgee to refuel and continued on his way to Luscantire. But it all went wrong as he flew over the Hunter Valley and the small aircraft crashed during what appeared to be an emergency landing near Putty outside Singleton, about 15 minutes shy of his destination. A search operation was sparked at around 5 p.m. after the man failed to arrive at Luscantire. A commercial aircraft soon detected a distress beacon, as did the Westpac rescue helicopter.
The initial call was for us to search between Luscantire and Mudgee. On our way there, we picked up the beacon and then we tracked it to the area, as well as a farmer had also rung in and said he'd found a downed aircraft.
Crew members didn't expect to find the man alive.
When we got to him, he had deep facial lacerations. He had head injuries, chest injuries, shoulder, leg, pretty well you name it. He's just gone through some trees in an aircraft, so he had multiple injuries.
NBN News has been told the pilot may have misjudged how much fuel he would need. He's now recovering in John Hunter Hospital, where he remains in a stable condition. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
Construction of Belmont's $11 million police station is well underway, but it didn't stop the state's police minister from popping in to do a little digging of his own and spruik law and order spending.
The bad government is incredibly committed to fighting crime and making our communities safer right across the state, but particularly here in Belmont.
Police say the temporary closure hasn't impacted on local crime fighting.
Whilst it has been challenging at times, moving police around the command, it will certainly be worth it at the end of the day.
And while the project is on schedule, these plans for Morisset and Toronto, released early last year, are off the table. Instead of brand new facilities, both stations will share in $16.9 million for upgrades.
Sometimes upgrades and refits are better options than brand new stations.
It's more than others are receiving, and some keep missing out altogether. Member for Wallsend Sonia Hornery says she's disappointed the new minister has ruled out building any new police stations in her electorate, which has been without a police hub since 2002.
I think putting a police station in there and having a small number of people almost creating a shop front's not actually going to drive crime down. What we should have is more police out on the street, and that's exactly what we've got in Newcastle.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
This event back in 2010 paved the way for a patchy period at the Hunters' premier sporting facility. But despite more than $1 million currently being spent on a new surface, come March next year, bikes will be back.
The stadium's here for everyone in the Hunter. It's not here just for football fans.
The state government-run Hunter Venues has booked the Nitro Circus, but don't go mistaking it for motocross.
The motocross brought in, I don't know, maybe 100 tonne of sand. Nitrous Circus actually doesn't bring any sand in at all. With the way Nitrous Circus works and the way we handle these events, that we can do that without any issues.
The Jets home game on November 8 will be the first test of the surface, and it's a far cry from earlier this year when the Players Association voted it the worst pitch in the A-League.
Players weren't being injured, so the pitch, whilst it wasn't a great pitch and it probably deserved its ratings, it was more a visual look rather than a safety look.
PFA Chief Executive Adam Vivian is keeping a close eye on the situation. The health and safety of players must be paramount when decisions are made about the use of the playing surface.
Do you think there should have been a period of time to see how the pitch responded before booking Nitro Circus?
No.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Willie's definitely a character, and on another note, I suppose we've lost probably 2,000 games of first grade experience over the last 3 or 4 years, and Willie will definitely bring that experience. I think we need that.
She finished second at the prestigious Lombardia Trophy event in Italy last year. This time around, Kalani Crane went one better. Taking on rivals from across the world, the teenager showed maturity beyond her years.
I was first in the short program last year, and I think I just got a little bit too excited for the second program, but then this year I was just really focused the whole time.
The winning routine included a move she'd been practicing all year but never attempted in overseas competition. Throughout the events in Europe, Kalani gained valuable ranking points, enabling her to compete at the World Championships in 2015. She'll also make her debut in the senior ranks as she spends more time away from home.
I'm used to it now. It was a little bit overwhelming 2 years ago when I first started doing international competitions, but now it's just really fun and I enjoy it so much.
The teenager will soon take part in a local production of Mary Poppins before heading to Brisbane to try and defend her national title in December. Then she'll return to LA to prepare for more international events.
It's not just about being number one in Australia. I want to strive to be number one in the world.